Welcome to Blueprints. I'm Bodine Sanders, your producer and host. Joining me today is Charles "Chip" Jenkins Jr., 1992 Olympic gold medal winner in Barcelona, Spain. I am very excited. I have a fascinating special guest for everybody today. The Olympics is in progress, and I thought it would be a incredible opportunity to talk to someone who I wrote about in my book, who was a upperclassman. He didn't know it, but he was a mentor at Villanova. Ladies and gentlemen, audience, welcome Chip Jenkins. Hey, Chip.
Hey, how you doing, buddy? What's going on?
Hey, I really do appreciate you coming on today. How you feeling today?
Feel pretty good. Got a lot of work to do, but you know.
Don't we all? Don't we all? Listen, I hope you don't mind me sharing your AKA the heckler as well. The heckler is also a nickname that Chip has, and I wrote about folks having nicknames in my book. But let's get to the more important topic, the Olympics. Okay. My first question, can you describe the feeling that you had when you knew you had earned that gold medal?
It was a very satisfying feeling. It was, in one sense, it was a relief. It was a relief because in the men's 4x400 relay, the American team is expected to win a gold medal. And while that may seem to be a bit presumptuous, it's not. The United States has some of the best 400-meter talent on the face of the earth. So if you make the American team in the 4x400 meters, you're almost guaranteed. I'm going to say almost guaranteed to win an Olympic gold medals. There have been a few exceptions when we haven't gotten a gold medal in the men's 4x400 meters, but those are few and far between because the United States has such, a deep wealth, a deep bench of talent in that particular event.
Chip, if I remember correctly, you were a senior when I was a freshman. Is that correct? You finished in 85.
I finished in 86.
86. Okay, so you were a junior. You were a junior. My freshman year was your junior year. Yes. And we were next door neighbors. It was you, Martin Booker, to my left, John Marshall, and then to my right was Brian Harrington. You remember that?
I do.
And so I was surrounded by upperclassmen, and then having a single was, that was just icing on the cake. I couldn't imagine as a freshman in St. Mary's having a single, but, rest in peace, Father Stack. Father Stack hooked it up. So he was a good man, and I wrote about him in my book. But what I want the audience to know, the reason why I wanted you to be my special guest is because, not just because of the Olympics, because that's huge in and of itself, but share with the audience the incredible representation that we have where your father, Coach Charles Jenkins, who was your coach, who ran for Jumbo Elliott, also won 2 gold medals in the Olympics in 1956, right?
My dad won a gold medal in the 400 meters and the men's 4x400 meters.
The 400 meters and the men's 4x, gotcha. Which puts you and your father in rarefied air to be the only father and son to win a gold medal in the same heat or / event. Did I say heat or event right?
It's event. same event. It's pretty incredible to know that, that I won a gold medal like my dad.
Yep.
I never, and this is going to sound crazy, but I never aspire. I mean, I think that everybody thinks that people that run track, and I think everybody does, aspires to make an Olympic team. I never, in my even though I was very good at what I did, I was American record holder in the 600 meters, and I had, 4-time All-American at Villanova. I never thought that I would be able to make an Olympic team. And one of the reasons I didn't think I was going to make the Olympic team was because of not only all the talent in the United States, but the outdoor 400 was something that, even though I was good in, obviously, I wasn't necessarily the best in. I think that, when you make an Olympic team, in one sense, a lot of it's skill, but a lot of it is also luck. If you're not having a good day at the office, you can be the best in the world, but if you're not having a good day in the office, you're not going to make the Olympic team. And I think too many people put a lot of pressure on themselves to make the Olympic team. They put so much pressure on making the Olympic team in the trials, they don't perform like they should. And I literally went into the Olympic trials knowing that I had a good chance, but I really felt like I had nothing to lose. So I don't think I had as much pressure on me as other people put on themselves. And I think that that's probably the reason why I did make the Olympic team.
Talk more about that special connection that you and your father have because of that 4x400 and being, I tell people all the time when the track conversation comes up, I brag about, Villanova having 2 alumni, father and son, who won that gold medal and earned that gold medal in that event. I don't think there's, I did a little research, but I didn't do, extensive research. But from the research that I did, we're the only university that can say that, where we have, 2 family members that earned that gold medal. Is that correct? We're the only university that can claim that, as far as you know?
Your research is correct. Not only are you the only university, I think that we are the only father and son gold medalists, that exist, period. And yes, it was something very, very special, certainly, to reach that level. It's almost, in one sense, it's almost unbelievable because, telling somebody that you're an Olympic gold medalist, even to this day, and I'm 60 years old, doesn't feel real to me.
Right.
Even though I did it, but it just, I rarely tell people that I ran the Olympics, and I rarely tell people that I have an Olympic gold medal, because it's almost unbelievable. It's like, people just don't believe it. They're like, really?
And you're in the history books. You're forever in the history books.
Correct. That's true. Never thought of it that way.
And not very many people can say that they're in the history books, especially for something positive, right?
Correct. That is true.
Right? And so, I brag about the Jenkins family because I knew your dad. He was there as a coach when I was there. You were a next door neighbor, upperclassman. I was in a new world, and I'm telling you, your dad could not have been a nicer person to me. A new athlete walking on campus. I tell people all the time, track without a doubt, was the second best sport at Villanova because of its history.
Well, I think it's I think it's the best sport of Villanova. I disagree with you about the basketball.
Well,
I think that track is the number one sport of Villanova. Luckily, and this is always a positive thing, we've had some unbelievable basketball teams who've won NCAA championships. And, not only are the guys that made up those teams really, really nice guys, they're down to earth, they're regular guys. And, Jay Wright and Raleigh Massimino certainly were, they were dedicated to their craft, and they did a wonderful job at Villanova. And, and the other thing is, no matter how great somebody is at athletics or whatever, they put their pants on the same way that everybody else does, and, even if you are a big sports star, you're supposed to be nice. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have ego when you're competing, certainly, and think you're the best. If you don't think you're the best and you don't have an ego, you're probably not going to compete that well. And you've got to believe that. But off of the playing field, you've got to be, regular nice guy. I really believe that.
And guess what? You walk the walk and you're talking the talk because you were a very nice guy. I mean, you didn't have to spend time with me as a freshman, a new guy on campus. Football had just been brought back. I mean, you didn't have to do that, but
absolutely had to do it. Are you kidding me? You absolutely, and that's the big thing. You absolutely have to do that. You have to take time for people, okay? No matter who they are or what they came from. You've got to take time with people, okay? If they are sincere and they're doing the right thing, you got to take time for people. You really do.
Well, what I appreciate, and then my next question after I have this comment is going to be about sharing with the audience your journey in track to get to that point where you earn that gold medal. But I remember, and I share this story with folks when I have the opportunity to. Mm-hmm. I tell people, when people ask me, was football my only sport? And I say, no, I ran track in junior high and high school. And then they may ask what event, and I'll say the 800. And I will then share with people that I wasn't good, but I did it because I was working on my speed. I was a 6'2" defensive back. That was a little abnormal back in that time. There was only a few tall, strong safeties or free safeties. Most strong safeties and free safeties were 5'8", 5'9", 5'10". So being 6'2", I was tall. So I had to I ran track to work on my speed. And you know where I'm going with this. When you and Martin Booker and John Marshall asked me to come practice with you guys on the track, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be practicing with world-class All-Americans. I didn't turn it down, but I did it because I wanted to work on my speed to get faster. And when I tell you, I never shared this with anybody, so I'm going to share it now. That first afternoon that we met on the track to practice, I went into the football locker room and tossed my cookies before I went back out on that track. Because I was so nervous. I was going to be practicing with world-class sprinters and runners. And so, but do you remember that time you guys allowed me to run with you and practice with you?
I probably don't remember it. I apologize. I don't remember it.
But that's okay, because I remember it like it was yesterday, because I could not. It took every ounce of energy for me to just be in the same space with you guys when we were actually in running motion. Because I did not want to be, 40 yards behind. And so you guys were probably practicing at 75%, maybe 80. But I was at 105% of my energy because I was practicing with world-class sprinters. Talk about your routine and then talk about your journey getting from the time you started running to earning that gold medal.
Okay. And the reason you probably put everything into it is because you're a competitor. I I started running. Had my first race when I was 12 years old. I ran the 100 at a regional junior Olympics meet. And actually, I won. I did pretty well. And then I didn't run for a couple years later. I ran in junior high school, went to high school, started running, and basically started from the bottom, which is what you do in each competitive sector. By the time I was a senior, I was beating everybody in my league, and I ran a race at the Naval Academy. I ran a 600 yards and indoors, and I ran the second fastest time in the country. And I think at that point I knew that, I had a future in track. I went to Villanova, and again, started at the bottom. Villanova, as you know, is probably one of the best track schools in the country. And I was going against, I had teammates who were NCAA champions. In some instances, they had run in the Olympics, or they were Olympic hopefuls. And some of the people on my team actually did make the Olympic team in the next Olympics. So I was, in good company. And I purposely wanted to go to a school like Villanova because I knew that I would get the best competition. I got a full ride actually to Georgetown, and Georgetown's a fine school, obviously, but their track team was not as good in the 400 meters. So, and I knew Villanova was a serious school when it came to running and competing in the 400 meters. So my first year at Villanova wasn't that great. And it was challenging. I was making an adjustment, as most freshmen do, to the better competition. By the time I got to become a sophomore, I started getting better. I was on the relay team, and I was exponentially getting better. By the time I was a senior, I was running in, obviously, NCAA finals, and I was a lot better. And then I went to law school, and I was good enough to run professionally and run on TV with the Atlantic Coast Track Club. And the manager of the Atlantic Coast Track Club is Kermit Foster. He's almost like a second father figure to me, or second father to me. And that's who I ran for the entirety of my career. I graduated from law school. Well, let me go back. My first year in law school, as a first-year law student, I broke the American record in the 600 meters. And I completed law school, took the bar, and as far as I was concerned, after that, my track career was over. I was going to practice law, and that was it. And I retired from track completely, actually, and worked for a law firm. About 8-9 months into working for the law firm, I really missed track, and I said, I have a lot left in these legs. And I quit the law firm and said, I'm going to run track full time. I moved back in with my parents because I really, never, ever competed in track professionally or without being in school. So my first year back, I made the World Indoor Championship team in the 400. By the time we got to the World Indoor Championship, I was really tired, because I had a long season. I was trying to make money. I got fourth. And unfortunately, it was one of the few times that our 4x4 lost in the World Championships. We got second. We got a silver medal. The Germans beat us in the 4x4. And then the next year, somebody grabbed me and took me aside and said, hey, you may want to cut out the indoor and just focus on the outdoors, because this is an Olympic year. And I did that. And I focused primarily on my outdoor race, which I'd never done. And I got better in the 400. And I think that about a week or two before the Olympic trials, I ran like the 10th fastest time in the world in the 400. So at that point, I knew I had a chance of making the Olympic team. But what that time did for me is I was able to get several races in Europe already secure before even making the Olympic team. So, I was looking forward to racing in Europe, and I had to go through this, 2-week crucible or 1-week crucible of running the rounds in the Olympic trials. So when I got to the Olympic trials, one of the complications was the whole Butch Reynolds story. I don't know if you're aware of the Butch Reynolds story. I'm sure you've seen it on ESPN. Are you aware of it?
It's vaguely coming to mind, but go ahead.
Okay, so what happened with Butch Reynolds is he got about, I think, the year before he got suspended because of a positive drug test.
Gotcha.
Now, Butch Reynolds was one of the best 400. He was a world record holder, in fact. He was one of the best 400-meter runners in the world. But he got suspended. So before the Olympic trials, he got his suspension overturned by USA Track and Field. However, the IAAF, which is the head of World Track and Field and the International Olympic Committee, didn't overturn his suspension. So because the U.S. said his suspension was overturned, he was able to go and run in the Olympic trials. But before we actually were able to run in the to run against Butch, the IAAF said, if you run against Butch in those Olympic trials, every 400-meter runner in America is going to be contaminated and not be able to compete in the Olympics. Wow. So there was a big legal battle that ensued during the Olympic trials, and our races were delayed for probably a week until the U.S. Supreme Court and the IAAF came to an agreement that we could run against Butch. So, we started the Olympic trials a week late, and I think having my dad there to kind of put my emotions in check about that actually helped me run place in the Olympic trials and make the team.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a great story. That's a great story. And the next time I pay attention to ESPN, I know you can I can probably find that somewhere in their archives.
Absolutely.
I'm going to check that out. We have a few minutes left, so there's a couple more important questions I want to ask you. Did you have fun in Barcelona, Spain during that time, or were you not able to have fun because you were so focused on the event?
It was a little bit of fun.
Okay.
A little bit of fun. One of the cool things that happened is when you make an Olympic team, you get a whole bunch of merchandise.
Right.
You get a whole bunch of toys, per se, which was nice. The whole Olympic Village experience, the partying and everything, you don't get to do, especially when your event is one of the last events of, until is one of the last events. Well, mine wasn't one of the last events. It was one of the last events before I had to fly off to Monaco to compete because I had a race 2 days after the 4x400 relay.
Wow.
So I really was focused on my race, And, so no, you don't party like everybody else. Everybody else is partying, but you're not.
Well, what advice, because I want to get your opinion on Quincy Wilson, the young man from the Baltimore, Maryland area. Bulls, is it Bulls High School or prep school?
Bullis.
Bullis. What do you think of that young man, and what advice would you give any young person who's participating in track and field and looking to advance their career to the college level and then hopefully have some hopes and dreams of participating in the Olympics?
Quincy he's an interesting case. Okay. And I think that he's getting good advice. He's basically so good that I don't believe he is going to compete for a college. I think he is going to compete professionally.
Oh, he's one of those he's one of those go straight to the pros out of high school?
Correct.
Wow.
And the reason is that there's so much money for him to make.
Correct.
At this point. It wasn't like when I was competing.
Not when we were in college. Right.
So from what I understand about him, I understand that he's got good management, and I understand that the people that are in place for him, because he is so good. The only advice that I would have for him, honestly, is when you make that big bag of money, put it in the stock market and buy and hold. That's the only advice I have for him. That and clean up his form. He is a phenomenal athlete. He is a high school record holder. He's run 44.6, which is phenomenal. I can't
crazy.
Give him any advice other than save your money, put it in the stock market, put it in Microsoft, or put it in Apple or Nvidia, and don't ever sell it. That's the only advice I have for the kid. Because whatever he's doing right. He made the Olympic team.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that rare for a young person?
Very rare.
To be that fast at that age and he's mature. Like I've seen him interviewed, he's very mature in his answers. He's educated. I mean, he
goes to Bullis, which is probably academically a hard school.
Okay.
I went to a school in his league, and schools like that they're not easy.
Gotcha.
So, in terms of maturity, yes, he's mature. I mean, everybody at that age is immature. I was immature at 30 years old. Okay, so
weren't we all?
I wouldn't hang the maturity level on it. I mean, he presents himself well, which is great.
Right.
That's what he's supposed to do. But hey, again, take the bag of money and put it in the stock market and don't sell. That's my advice to him.
Now here's a question. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 minutes left. Are you going to watch the Olympics?
I am. I usually am not. Believe it or not, I'm not a big track and field fan, but I think I'm willing to watch this Olympics. I watch the Olympic trials, so. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to call. Now I know I can call you and hassle the heckler and ask all kinds of questions, because I watched as many of those trials. I watched the diving trials. I watched the swim trials. I watched the track trials. I mean, I was into it this past 2 months, right? I just was like, wow, this is some good stuff. So you can count on me. I will be calling you. Well, listen, I want to thank you again, and I hope we had a chance.
Before I go.
Yes, sir.
I want to say to your audience that the book that Bodine wrote, The Race, what is the Race Against Race?
Race Against Race, My Journey of Diversity.
is a wonderful book. It was wonderfully written.
Thank you.
And I would suggest anybody pick it up, because when I picked up that book, I could not put it down.
Well, thank you, Chip. I really, really appreciate it. And again, I wanted to have you on for a long time. Last year, I called you about this. I wanted to have you on because I wanted to highlight not just you, but you and your father, and the ability to say that I know someone who's in the history books, who accomplished something that no one else had accomplished, is an incredible, incredible thing. And I cherish our relationship and friendship. Thank you for your time. We've come to the end of our program. Folks, thank you. Thank you for your time. Stay tuned. There will be more to come.
you.